involving leadership, high-stake presentation, and collaboration strategies. Michael graduated with a MBA, postgraduate diploma in human resource, and he is a certified management consultant with Management Consulting Institute in the United States. Without further ado, I would love to invite Mr. Michael Xavier to be the moderator of today. Back to you, Mike. Hi, Mike.
Michael, you need to unmute.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Okay, if you can hear me loud and clear, can you just type a yes on your chat screen so I know that you are able to hear me loud and clear? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Crystal, for the introduction. And a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to our very first HR webinar, a HR forum entitled Disrupted HR, the role of HR in the front lines of this situation that we're in at the moment post-COVID-19. So in this particular webinar, I really hope to help all of you grapple with these challenges that we are facing at the moment, especially when organizations are returning to work. And I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome all of our participants, those of you who are already present here. I'm sure some of them are making their way into this session. And I can assure you that this next 1.5 hours would be a very meaningful time together. So we have, in this company, SpeakRight Consultancy, we have a total of 9 corporate trainers who come from a variety of background, specializing in the areas of strategy, communication, leadership, and collaboration. And I do see that some of our trainers are present here. I think Anand is here together with some of our trainers. So thank you so much, trainers, for being here with us. We also have our team with us, Crystal, Christopher, Vicky, and Jonathan, without whom this session would not have been possible. So I'm very grateful to my team for making this possible. And most importantly, I'm utterly grateful for the generous time that's going to be spent by our panelists for today, who have carved out the time to be with us today, and we are truly grateful for that. So for the benefit of our guests who are present here today, and let me just begin this forum by first explaining to you the process on how this forum is actually going to be conducted. Each panelist will be given 15 minutes to share their thoughts and ideas based on the questions that I'll be sharing, I'll be asking. And after each panelist have spoken, we will then take some questions that you could type out in the chat room. You may start typing the questions during the session so that we could take a look at the questions. Though we may not have time for all the questions, I will definitely try my best to encapsulate the question into 1 or 2 important ones. And we will definitely ask the panelists to help us with those challenges that you may be facing. We will also entertain 1 or 2 verbal questions along the way. So be ready to unmute yourself when I ask you to. And the first person who's able to respond will be given the opportunity to ask the question verbally. Just for your information, this webinar is being recorded for our recording of our record purposes. And throughout this webinar, I would strongly encourage all of you to leave your videos on, because we really like to see you and communicate with you. It'll be also easy for the panelists to interact with you during this session. Yes, most importantly, I would like to encourage you to take some notes along the way, because I can assure you there's some gems and rubies and gold that is going to be shared in today's session. And as they always say, some good things only come once, so make sure to capture the moment. There would be a 3 minutes break at 3:45, just so that you can catch a breather for about 3 minutes, and then we will return to the session 3 minutes later, all the way till 4:30 p.m. If all of you all are ready, just relax and enjoy this session for today. So let me begin by introducing the 3 panelists for today, and then I will be inviting Usha to start off the session once I pose her the first question. All right, so let me introduce to you the first speaker, who is none other than Usha Devi. Usha, would you like to just say, wave a hi so they know who is the Usha on the screen? Oh, okay, there you go. That is Usha Devi. She is the HR director for Ramsay Sime Darby Healthcare. Usha hails from the hospital industry. Usha and I actually go back 22 years when she was a member of the Bayambaru Toastmasters Club, Penang. I've had the wonderful opportunity to actually compete in several speech contests with Usha. Well, don't ask me who won because Usha won all those speech contests that I competed with her. So you can be assured that she is a very proficient speaker. Beyond that, Usha is also what I consider to be a friendly, amiable, and a very people-centered HR practitioner with over 20 years of experience in this field. She's I had an opportunity of reconnecting with Usha when she was serving as the HR director for Goodyear, Malaysia, where she served for 6 years. If I were to say Usha's biggest achievement, from what I know and what I've heard, is that her ability to successfully run collective agreement negotiations with unions. I believe that many HR people really need to grapple and handle this very tough situation. And also, she successfully initiated consistent engagement activities with her employees, particularly seeing a vast improvement in the Pulse survey results. These are some things that Usha has actually achieved. In her current role as a HR director, she is responsible for all aspects of people and work climate for Malaysia, Indonesia, and Hong Kong. So you could safely say that Usha is playing a regional role, but her greater focus would be on organizational transformation to continuously provide the best service to patients and to ensure sustainability of the various businesses under the group. So once again, Usha, thank you so much for making your time for being here. And we are really looking forward to hearing what you got to share with us today. And our second speaker, our second panelist for today is none other than Chin Jensen. Chin Jensen, could you please just wave so we know you're there? Yeah, there you go. That's Jensen. If there's one thing I could describe Jensen, I would say he has the heart for people and the tenacity to make things happen as a HR manager, particularly in his current role as senior HR manager. I've had an opportunity to meet Jensen in 2007 in an Intel HR event where I was called to speak. And ever since that particular event, we have been working together on many projects in all the 5 organizations that Jensen has worked since then. He has held various capacities from generalist to talent management, and now particularly as a senior HR manager. Today, he is a senior HR manager of TF AMD Microelectronics, formerly known as AMD Microelectronics Penang. He was instrumental in implementing what is known as the ATEC values in TFAMD. ATEC stands for achievement, teamwork, accountability, and great place to work. And last year, I was a short story. I had an opportunity to talk to Jensen in his office, and then suddenly, all his employees just barged into the office with a cake and celebrated his birthday with so much love. And it is then that I realized that that Jensen not only has a knack of engaging his entire organization, but more importantly, Jensen was able to engage his entire HR team, who is 100% behind him to ensure that all the projects are made successful, particularly in ensuring that the ATEC values are successfully integrated into the organization. So I really applaud Jensen for the hard work and the amount of time he has dedicated to make that happen in his organization. So Jensen, thank you so much for making your time with us this evening, and I'm really looking forward to hear some of your sharings later, particularly in the area of culture. And the third person that we'd like to introduce, but certainly not least, his name is Murthy Murugaya. Murthy, could you just give a wave to the friends of here today? Thank you, Murthy. He is I would consider him a hardcore HR practitioner with over 20 years experience in various roles. He is currently the HR director for Micron Technology, serving as the country lead for its bases in Penang and Muar, Johor. His last position was with WD as HR director, where he served from 2014 to 2018. And I've had the opportunity of working very closely with Murthy in running some sessions for his managers. But more importantly, this is what I will tell you. I was very impressed by the initiative that he took to run awareness sessions for his leadership team. And what's interesting is that most recently on January 14, Murthy organized what is known as a coffee chat session in a cafe bistro in one of the outlets in Juru, where he invited as many as 50 to 60 Gen Y employees for a networking session and to learn how to manage their more older senior colleagues who are in the Gen X and baby boomer category. So this sort of engagement sessions that he did for his employee, which I presume is going to be ongoing, was his creative way of really connecting with the young people. So it's no wonder why that Murthy was highly successful in improving his employee engagement ratings through a survey over 1,200 employees in Micron, where he managed to push up the engagement level from 61% to 73% within a year. That is quite a commendable improvement. I believe that his other biggest contribution is his ability to bring the whole idea of diversity and inclusion into reality in the organization that he has worked with. So from a business standpoint, Murthy closely works with MIDA and other statutory bodies to better position the organization he works for. And I believe that's a very important trait in HR folks, be able to be connected to important GLCs and statutory bodies. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome Mr. Murthy to our session today. Thank you, Mr. Murthy, for making the time, for being here with us this afternoon. So there you go, my dear friends. We have Usha, Jensen, and Murthy who are going to share with us their sharing today. So let me begin by introducing our first panelist for today, which is Usha Devi. And the question that I would like to ask Usha would be, what would be HR's key priority during these times of crisis? Especially now when we are returning to work, what should be our focus and where would we take HR moving forward? Over to you, Usha.
Thanks, Michael. Just to say, recap what Christopher mentioned just now about HR being the unsung hero. I'm from the hospital industry, so I think our frontliners are the real unsung hero here. So what I'm going to share today is basically my experience in the hospital industry, so might be a little bit different from the rest. We are essential services, so all of us are working near normal. The first thing, let me share with you what the priority were during the MCO and what we are looking for after the MCO. During the MCO, when it was announced, the first priority that came to my mind was make sure all my employees get paid. That's the most important thing, right? So, and again, even though the hospitals are working, but the corporate office that process the salaries and the team, we need to be at home. We need to work from home. So the first thing that crossed our mind was make sure that whatever tools that we need to bring back home, we can do so and pay our employees accordingly. And that's it across for all the 3 countries. The second thing that was a priority now, and it will be as more and more patients come to the hospital, it's the safety and the welfare of our employees, right? We are in an industry where our employees are exposed the most as compared to the rest, right? So how do we as HR work together with our leaders to ensure assurance given to our employees that we have a safe working environment? I do know that there are people outside who are not from hospital industry who have concern going to the hospital for fear, but frankly, hospital is the safest place because we have all the precautions and all the processes as far as safety is concerned. So how do we not just articulate that in action, but how do we articulate that to our employees to assure them that we do have a safe working environment? And I can share with you a challenge that we have, especially in Indonesia, because Indonesia was a little bit slower to react to the COVID-19. So we do have a fair bit of challenges in Indonesia. So we had to spend a lot of time, not just communicating and re-emphasizing our focus on safety and health, but we kind of have to change our style to be a little bit more dictatorial, right? So I think HR and the management, sometimes we just need to change our style to be a little bit dictatorial to ensure that the processes and procedures are followed through as far as safety and health is concerned for our employees. The other focus that we look at will be moving forward focus, retention of employees. Nurses, I'm not sure about other industry. I can tell you as far as hospital management hospital industry, nurses have high turnover. Experienced nurses are well sought after in overseas and also in a lot of hospitals around, and you know hospitals are mushrooming. So how do we ensure that our nurses are, not just nurses, but our employees are taken care of, that we hear their concerns, we continually support them in their growth in this period to ensure that they are still willing to work with us and they find that we are still the right employer for them. So one of the ways that we have started to do is to have more training during this period, which could be a little bit different from other industry. Because the number of patients coming to the hospital have decreased, our employees, especially our nurses and the allied health group, are able to have a little bit more time to attend training. So what we have started as part of our objective to grow our employees, we took advantage of this time to conduct training for our employees, and we do this on site because we are able to do so on site, and we are using our internal resources. So the leaders, the leaders of the organization went down to the field and conduct this training. So these are areas that we find, we try to find pockets of opportunity for us to get closer to our employees and to continually support them in their development. It's easier said than done, right? So, I mean, we can always say, but what is important for us is that we are able to articulate that into action. And I think this is something that we will, we have done pretty well, at least in the Malaysia context. The other area that I think that the learning that I got from this, and I think what HR needs to play a better role moving forward, is to get connected to the business leaders, right? Because how do we redeploy our employees? For example, patients are down, but we still have 100% full-time employees. How do we look into the rostering of our employees? How do we look into their work hours, right? I know I'm being very operational, but that's how hospital works, right? How do we ensure that our employees, pockets of our employees who are very patient-facing, like the emergency department, the isolation team, they do have enough rest? But also, how do we ensure employees of the other areas that seems to be a little bit more relaxed will have the opportunity to contribute also in this crisis? So I think the continuously connecting to the management is extremely important. We need to understand how the business is going so that we are able to know what are the plans in the next 2 months. We do foresee that things will still continue to be low. And so what do we do with our employees then, right? How do we continually motivate them to work and not look for other opportunities? I think the biggest challenge for us will continually to be retention of our employees. Right. Yeah, I think that's what I can say for the moment.
Thank you, Usha. So just a quick recap, you say the priority would be making sure people are paid on time, especially now. Safety would be the second area of focus. You also mentioned the fact that in certain places where compliance is low, there's a need to be a little bit more assertive. In your term, dictatorial. I've never seen you dictatorial before, so that's something that HR people need to capture. Yeah, and very interestingly, you also mentioned that during this time, you are also improved the learning and growing of your employees by looking into some internal training for employees. And the last thing you mentioned is the importance of HR managers to also be connected to the business leaders. That's some really good insight. So, Usha, you have been in the manufacturing and then you've gone into the hospital and arena. Has there been a big difference in the way you manage HR?
Definitely, I think extremely different. Hospital industry is very patient facing,
Right.
customer focused. Manufacturing, we are more internal customer focused. I can give you an example, right? The moment I go into the hospital and park my car, regardless of how I am on that day, I have to smile the moment I get out from the car. I have to dress properly because anyone can be my customers or my patient.
Right.
So that is an area where a little bit different from manufacturing. We can sat kejap lagi, I talk to you later. We just have we can't do that in a hospital type of obviously hospital, but patient or customer facing environment.
But in terms of how employees respond to you, people from the service industry versus people from the manufacturing, do they respond the similar way? Is there some similarity that you see in the way they do things and the way they respond to situations like this?
I think if I can say so, I think customer facing employees demand more from internal support because they face customers, they face patients who in good health will go to the hospital. Not many, right? Will go to the hospital when they're not well. So we have to face with a lot of emotions. So employees obviously expect us to support them with speed, accurate information, whatever queries or challenges or problems that they have, we need to solve for them fast because we have to do the same with our patients and customers.
Right.
So the speed and the accuracy of a transaction between us and our internal customers, I think is tighter.
Wow. So we can see clearly that in working in the service industry, sometimes the response time that HR takes must be even faster because it may have a direct impact on how they're going to respond towards patients and customers on the whole. So it's very important that HR truly plays its role to support its employees.
And if I can add, Michael, is also I think in customer facing environment, our biggest cost is headcount. All right.
Okay.
So we need to manage how do we look into, again, the work hours, the rostering, the shift patterns. We are currently looking for flexible workforce, right? At least 100% of our workforce full-time employees. And in situation like this, it's not helping us, right?
Right.
So we do need to the next step for us is looking into a more flexible workforce. Probably 90% full-time, 10% part-time. Ideally, it should be lesser full-time and lesser than 90%.
Right.
That's the ideal situation. And so that we are able to kind of accommodate to the needs of the business and also accommodate to the needs of the patients, right? Moving forward, in the future, patients might want to come to the hospitals at irregular hours. So how do we accommodate that service to patients?
I think that's a prospect.
Plays a role.
Yeah, I think that's a prospect that many of our participants in this forum would also like to explore. Not to just look at traditionally full-time employees, but having people come into a flexible work arrangement. I think that's something that a lot of people are exploring at this point as well. Thank you so much, Usha, for your sharing. I'll be also posing you some questions as we go along. All right,
No
so
worries.
moving on to our second panelist for today, we have Jensen. So Jensen, what from a manufacturing perspective, now you're with TF what do you think HR should do during times of crises like this? What should we be focusing on?
Thanks, Michael. So I think firstly, thank you, Michael, for inviting me for this session.
Welcome.
So the COVID-19 situation was an interesting experience for all HR practitioners, definitely. It really put us into a high gear and also put us into a area that is what we call unknown zone, because many of the things that we are unaware, and this MCO is the first time in Malaysia and many parts of the world. And I think the before the MCO was effective, we were also worried about our employee safety, all right? And that was one of the key priorities. So early of the before the MCO, way before MCO in early of March or late February, we initiated our internal people steering committee on COVID-19. So we had this on a daily basis, on a half, what we call 30 minutes daily, to update them on the what's COVID-19, what's the current situation, what are we implementing, what are the things that happening. Then and some of the companies that as you know, like one of the MNC companies had what we call confirmed case of COVID-19, and that really shake the whole Bayan Lepas industrial park factories. So we also had to do this what we call contact tracing. So we did a survey, sent out to all our employees. Have there any close contact with the high risk people, frontliners, and also those who are close to the MNC, those confirmed cases. So it was a very stressful, but also I would say in my personal opinion, was a good experience in a way that I able to learn new things and explore new things. In the first day of MCO, I was also in the plant, right? So it was a very interesting ride to the plant too. So there were no traffic and like so smooth sailing, right? But today there were more cars, definitely. And I think the key priorities also moving forward is communication with the employees. So during the MCO, we also had a lot of communication. We sent out emails because there were a lot of employees. Information was not passed down because some of them are staying at home. All right, and there were also some miscommunication by supervisors. So we had to do virtual meetings with the supervisors, so and to explain to them what was the guidelines. So that's very important, and to also to increase the engagement. I think that's also another important aspect. Engagement in the sense of have more what I call dialogue or understanding or show empathy during this period of time. As you know, this period of time, many people are going through stress, even though working from home or staying from home, right? We get a lot of employees, right? Just imagine my HR business partner, there have been a lot of calls coming to them from operators, technicians, every day. So there's always as you know, government will announce certain changes, then people will start to ask questions, what does it mean? So the thing that we have to do as a HR professional is to keep calm, you know, and then try to explain step by step, reaffirm them, and what we call to also seek clarification. I think the one that I also did with my organization, just to share my what I did was also to call each of the HOD. I have about 11 HODs. So on a weekly basis, I just call them, asking them not about work, but asking them about how are they coping, what are the challenges. So at least to what you call distress them, because some of them, even though work from home for ladies, right, they have to take care of the kids, they have to cook, then they have on call, and sometimes the meetings even goes up to late afternoon, sometimes at night, right? And these are the things that they are facing during the first MCO and second MCO. But I realized then the third MCO, they are more adapted to the situation, so which is good. So I was also part of the helping them to readjust and also giving them tips how to distress. And motivation is important for all the employees, right? And one of the important portion is to keep employees motivated. So I also did tell all my HODs, the management staff, to have a weekly staff meeting, to continue with the weekly staff meeting. We have Skype, you can use Zoom, so whichever platform that is most appropriate. And it's very important to not talk just about work, but also talk about what are they facing, their emotions, their fears, what are the challenges they are facing in terms of work from home or family. So I think that's also very important. So to get them feel comfortable, I think during this period of time, during the crisis, especially during MCO1 and MCO2, we should always play an important role for showing empathy. And even doing now, also we also have employees who want to come to work but cannot come to work. So we also call them. All employees we had what we call was stranded. Some of them went back home to, example, back to Malacca, and now they cannot come back. Like last week, they were saying they cannot come back because the transportation, there's no transportation, bus is not moving. So they also they are feeling anxiety. Is their work is still secure? So we call all of them. All the employees who are staying at home, who cannot come to work, we call them, we talk to them, all right? And then also we also give them advice what to do. So we keep in communication with all the employees. So just imagine, right? It's not something normal, because HR usually we don't have this mass of interaction, but MCO1, MCO2, MCO3 will really ramp up the mass interaction with, let's say my factory is about 2,200. So we have 2,200 of employees, almost daily basis, trying to interact with HR. So it was very interesting times. I think that's all I would like to share. Any more questions that you have, Michael?
Thank you so much, Jensen. Before I continue, I'd just like to remind our guests, if you have any questions, just feel free to type your questions on the chat room, and then we will take them as we go along. So Jensen, thank you for sharing your point of view. I see that your focus has been very much like what Usha has done, focus on the safety aspect being one of our key priorities. The second being getting the operations running. But I noticed that you spend a lot of time on the emotional aspect. From your words, you say reaffirming people, clarifying expectations, looking into keeping employees motivated, showing empathy. And I like the term that you use, mass interaction. That's a new term that I think you've created, Jensen, in the HR fraternity. Which is very true, because often HR could be caught in an administrative role and we forget to interact with people. But imagine trying to interact with 2,000 over employees, using your resources of your employees to do that. And that's what you have shared with us. So that's a very good perspective. Just a question to you, Jensen. Based on these initiatives that you have done upon returning to work, and even during the MCO1, MCO2, before they move into adaptability zone, what sort of concerns or feedback that you've been hearing from employees that they're worried about the situation that needed HR's clarification? Could you share with us some of their typical employee concerns?
I think the one is safety. I think safety portion we were able to address it because we keep on sending out mass communication through email. What the EHS team is doing in terms of social distancing, sanitization on a daily basis, at least 3 times a day, and then we also providing the face mask, and also many other programs that we are doing to ensure that the employees that come to work, there's a minimum risk of spread of this disease. All right. But I think the one thing that also right now is that certain employees, as you know, schools are not open, right? And some parents are working parents, both of them. So this is something that HR has to interject and also talk to both parties, right? Because as you know, the MCO1, MCO2, it greatly impacted the business, right? In a sense. And with this relaxed, more what I call relaxed MCO, where the factories can go 100%, some employees cannot come to work because some of them, example, the husband is working in Singapore, the parents is not in Penang, is also maybe in Ipoh, and we know they cannot travel from state to state. So, but the supervisor is insisting the employee to come to work. So we as a HR have to intervene and also explain to the supervisors. I think we explain to them is that during this period, we should also show empathy. And once we show empathy as an organization, organization with a heart, they will definitely grow with the company, and definitely they will stay with the company longer, right? I know business is important, but I think we also should they are in the situation that they do not want to be, right? And this is something that we HR intervene and supported and try to have a win-win sort of situation. And then also some examples. Another example is that we have some employees staying with frontliners, right? So we also try to reduce this sort of perception, because people will say, oh, they are staying with the frontliners, example. Sorry, Usha. But they have this fear, well, they are frontliners, they are the most high risk and
vulnerable.
And they are coming to work. So we also talk to the employees and ask them, it's best that you get another place to stay, and we help them, right, to go through this.
So I see that you have taken a more micro approach in dealing with this situation, rather than HR just playing a policy approach at a high level. You kind of dived a little deeper in to deal with the day-to-day issues that employees may be facing due to this COVID-19 situation.
Yes, Michael.
That's definitely a lot of work, and I'm sure it's a lot of added stress and pressure to your team to deal with all this situation.
Yes,
well, I'd just like to highlight, I was speaking to one HR director recently, and he told me that he's got no time to look into employee engagement or connecting with the employee at the emotional level, because of all the administrative work that HR was bogged down to do in trying to ensure that the factory is up and running and making sure that the employees were briefed on the safety aspects. So a lot of reactionary activities. And he didn't have time to actually focus on this area. What would be your advice to a typical HR person who is very much caught into this rat race of HR administration and operations under these circumstances?
Yeah, I think, Michael, that is very true. I was also part of it, because I also had to get the MITI approval. I think most HR were aware about this. We had to scramble, get MITI approval, and then and you know, the MITI website wasn't working that well.
Right.
Right. So I think the time we have to allocate certain time, definitely. And for me, it's like it was like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, right? I mean, after working hours, then I'll call the HODs one by one, talk to them and ask them, how are you doing? How's your day? Right, then they will share this and that, having this difficulty, certain employees. So from there, at least I have a gauge of how's the organization, how's the department, what support do I need. So from there, I was unable to also to prioritize which department needed the higher focus of engagement, which department I think they certain leaders are strong, they can manage by themselves, and certain departments which are more complex department, then we can dive in and help them, right? So these are the things that I did, and also help to support the departments, but each department.
That's interesting. So you actually look at the departments and see which of the departments can manage it on their own, and you had less focus on those areas. Those departments where the head HOD needs help in that's when you started diving in. So you didn't have to look at all the 2,000, but you just look at on need basis. So that way you manage your time a little bit better.
Yes, correct.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Jensen. That was some very deep insight, particularly in the area of empathy, reassurance, more on the people side. I think Jensen has given more on the people side. Usha has given a bit more on the strategic view on how the whole HR operations work. So we're seeing some different flavors as we come along. So we are going to move on in a short while to the third speaker. But before that, we're going to take a short break. I would like to just give you a 3 minutes a breather for you to maybe run to the restroom, grab a cup of coffee or something, and we'll be back in 3 minutes. Over to you, Crystal.
Thank you, Michael. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually posting a YouTube link into our chat, our group chat. You may just click on the YouTube link, and from there you can actually catch our first speaker, which is Grace Boy. She's going to share about her session on May 12th, which is next week, about Protect Your Mind at 8:30 p.m. So just feel free to click on the video and enjoy it.
In them thinking that if I'm not being as productive as the way how I used to be, how am I going to manage this? So, and we made this decision, and subsequently, so we started having continuous regular conversation with the team members or the employees to make sure that don't worry about the ratings, but let's see how we can stay productive. What are the helps that you need? So this is where you hear things like my connectivity back at home is not really working the way how it's supposed to be. Okay, so I'm having these challenges. The childcare center is not operating. I have a lot of kids back at home, and then you even come across situations where a mother, she's not a single mother, a mother with teenage kids at home. Now husband has been stranded in Thailand because both countries have gone on a border lockdown. They cannot travel back for the last 2 months. So they have to manage the situations back at home. So how you really need to understand what are the challenges that they go through, right?
So and how are you going to discover this if you don't have this this personalized conversation? So this is what we really encourage our people to do, so that you start engaging and try to understand and see, first of all, even before seeing how to make them productive, what other help or assistance that we can provide, so that we can support them mentally and also psychologically at this juncture. So this has been our priorities at the moment. As what I mentioned to you, in terms of establishing a robust communication process, so that we reach out to all people within the organization, wherever they are located, in whatever mode of operation at the moment. Secondly, to really make sure that we understand from them what are the supports or the assistance or the help they need, so that they can stay productive. And most importantly, they must feel that it is okay that if you are not going to be equally productive the way how it used to be 6 months ago, because this is a situation or this is a challenge that we're currently going through, and it is okay. So, but let's see how we can work together, okay, in order to sail through this situation. So this is what we have to establish. And of course, thirdly, what kind of mental or psychological related support that we can continuously give. So as far as Micron is concerned, so we have already had a collaboration with them, guidance resource organization, okay, through an employee assistance program. So we are promoting heavily now. So even, let's say, for example, an employee, if they feel a little bit hesitant to talk to us in terms of the challenges that they're personally going through, and secondly, we may not probably give a professional advice. So, and on cases like this, so we are referring them to this EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, whereby so you have a group of professionals who will be reaching out to them and helping them to manage themselves mentally and psychologically, to go through this period of the challenge that they're currently experiencing. So these are some of the approaches that we have taken. As what I mentioned in the beginning, I would say, let me be very honest, we are learning, okay, from a day-to-day basis, because it's completely a new experience to all of us, and we are learning some of the experience. We learn from mistakes, and we kind of, we rebound, and we learn from it, and we started improvising in terms of how we want to continuously engage with our people. So the key, I would say, that this juncture, our number one priority is how do you stay engaged with the people, and to make sure that they feel that they're not in isolation, and that we are there although we are working remotely, we are there as a family, as an organization together. Yeah, that's for me, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Murthy. Just to quickly recap what you just said, the central theme of your sharing today is to have a robust communication process, and that starts with management and HR communicating regularly with employees to ensure that any kind of anxiousness or concerns that employees have is quickly addressed. But you also stated that it's important to have the right tone, the right timing, and also the relevance of the message being shared being an important priority. The second thing they talked about is to create the right environment for people to actually thrive under these new conditions, naturally being safety and all the other aspects being brought into play. But I also like the fact that you mentioned that it's not just HR and management communicating with the employees, but also ensuring that managers are having regular, what you call as personalized check-in conversations with the employee. I find that this to be the biggest challenge, because it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy that many managers are not having regular conversation with their employees even before the COVID-19 situation. And suddenly when we are trying to impose this, and therefore this would be my question, how do you then ensure that these leaders, HODs and supervisors are actually having this regular communication process? Do you have a system in place for a situation like that?
No, actually, we do have a system in place, so, and we have a platform, and they got to go in and they got to check in and have the conversation and have those points recorded over there. But for me, that is very mechanical. So, but at this point, I've discovered something, that's what I mentioned earlier. So we kind of discovering and learning a lot of new things, in this environment that we are currently in now. I mean, naturally, what has happened is that the relationship or the bonding has started to happen more. Okay, I mean, the example that you gave just now, one of the biggest challenges has always been to get our managers or supervisors to engage and talk to people on a regular basis in this relationship part. But it is happening now quite naturally, even without us really pushing this hard. And secondly, another thing that which I see that is happening is that empowerment. So people are being empowered. So although they feel a little bit, I would not say resources less at the moment, but they feel that they are being empowered. So and thirdly, the trust factor has started to build, and especially between the supervisors and the subordinates. And I don't know why, but probably I mean, this is something that we may have to study and really understand what has changed, in order to make this happen. Because all these things happens quite fast, and now when we look back and we started to have certain check-ins with some of these leaders, and when we hear from them, and that's quite it's a revelation to us. I mean, the element of people are being empowered, and number two, the relationship aspect between the managers and the subordinates have started to foster in a better in a better strength. And thirdly, in terms of the trust. So so to your point, how effective it is being, yes, this has been communicated and we have kind of mandated that we have this conversation, but you can mandate an act, but not necessarily, you cannot expect it to happen as effectively as the way how you desire it to happen, right? But in this context, it's kind of unfolding quite naturally. I mean, that's something very interesting that we have found. And in fact, when I have a meeting with the senior leaders, a couple of days back, and they told me personally that, and this situation kind of brought people, this crisis has really brought people closely together. And we kind of, what another interesting discovery is that, Michael, people kind of started accepting the shortfalls or the challenges, or not say shortfalls, or some of the shortcomings of another individual, and we started accepting people as a person. Okay, instead of expecting them as a professional, you got to be like this. If you want to be part of, if you want to be in this position, you're going to play this role, and you are at this level. This is the way how you has to be. So instead of looking at it from that perspective, the team members or the employees have been embraced. People started embracing them as a person. Because you know why? Even in a Zoom call like this, right? I mean, now you are literally talking to people in their home.
Yeah.
Okay? And not you don't, and we have to accept the fact that you will have children popping up at the background every now and then, you don't have to be fully dressed all the time. Okay, and you can be the way you are. So I think this has kind of created a new norm that we started embracing people the way they are.
Yes,
So
I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting that you mentioned that this situation has could be a blessing in disguise. The silver lining at the end of the rainbow. Yeah, that relationship is becoming better, and people are feeling empowered, and because people are having regular check-ins, the trust is definitely being established. Thank you so much, Mr. Murthy. That was a very interesting sharing that you've given us. And so we have heard all our three speakers. I just would like to pose one question to Usha. Usha, you highlighted earlier in your sharing that it's important for us to engage the business leaders, and I've got this situation to pose to Usha, and then maybe the rest of the other Murthy and also Jensen can pop in. The case study is this particular company that I've been in contact with had told me that because of this COVID-19 situation, they actually saw 80% of the businesses suddenly crash down with almost very little business. And the management took a very knee-jerk reaction of starting to go on a very serious cost-cutting measure, slashing operating costs. And just the only direction for management was, let's just cut cost. But this situation has, on the whole, kind of created a lot of uneasiness with employees. And less what Mr. Murthy mentioned, people started feeling concerned that their job security is at risk. So Usha, how would you deal with this situation, particularly with management, if you were to notice that management is being very reactionary in their approach? As a HR director, what would be the best approach to help educate management to not just take a short term, but also take a mid-term and a long-term approach in the times of crisis? Over to you, Usha.
I think first thing I have to stay calm in such situation, because if everybody will react. Management to react, I think that's understandable, because when you see your bottom line it's really bottomless. That very, very scary thought. And if you are responsible for hundreds or thousands of mouths to feed, I think that is a huge responsibility. So what I think is similar for us, I think it's no different with any other industry. Our businesses also have been impacted with this crisis. But how I would look at it is that that's why I always believe that we have to be close with the leader or the stakeholder that make the decision as far as the business is concerned, to understand how the business is going in the next few months. It's true that the business is back now, but how would it grow in the next few months? I think that's the most important thing. A little sign of sunshine, it's a good motivator for the employees, because it's the message. And I like what we talked about just now on communication, is how do we communicate hope to the employees? Unless it is a business that totally has no way that they can recover from this. That I can't comment because I don't have that experience at all. But if a business that needs to take a pause, I think for HR, what we can do is, first of all, understand the business, understand where the leaders are coming from and what are their concerns and their fears. Thirdly, how do we bridge the gap between the employees and the leaders as far as this fear is concerned? Is there anything that we can do to help? I believe very much in the open communication to the employees, because I am quite sure employees would go all out to support the companies if they have faith in the company. But you know, my advice to myself as a HR person is that be calm, take a step back, be the sounding board for the leader.
Wow, that's a very, very insightful thought. I like the fact that you reminded that HR managers need to be close to the business leader. If you don't have a good relationship with your GM or your managing director, you're already setting ourselves up for failure already. So that's very important to have that open communication. And HR people understanding the business is very important. But again, sometimes hope may not necessarily mean that all the heads are going to be kept. There's probably going to be some reduction in salary. There's going to be some reduction of headcount. But at the end of the day, showing people there's a way out, as what Murthy mentioned just now. Employee, what is that? Murthy, employee impact group, is it? The group that helps the employees deal with the situation. EIA.
EAP.
Employee Assistance Program.
Employee Assistance Program. So even that is a message of hope that we are giving when we are actually getting people connected to a system to help them go through this particular situation. So very good message there, Usha. So Jensen, over to you, the same question. If you had a very difficult superior, assuming if you had a very difficult superior who does not have this mindset of employee as his number one priority, perhaps business productivity would be his focus. As a senior HR manager, what would be your strategy to try to tackle this situation with senior management team?
I think the first thing, Michael, is that we have to understand the whole context of it, right? I mean, there is a sort of call, like Usha was saying, is people are in panic mode, right? So, because every day there's always negative news, right? And I think as a HR person, I think first thing we need to remain calm, right? And understanding from our customers, right? How's the business? Is it coming in? The loading, the volumes. So from there, I think we can have a clarity and a bigger picture before reacting. And fortunately for me, is that currently my company in TFMD is still doing well. We are still getting orders, which is fortunate. But I know certain factories outside or certain industry, especially the hospitality line, the hotels are badly impacted, right? So like hotels can't do much, right? Because tourism, there's no tourism, there's no travel, and people cannot move around. So I think that's something that is pretty sad, right? That certain hotels have to, shut down. But I think for HR professional, I think we I think first we have to seek clarity, and we have to craft a communication package to the employees. Just like Muti said, I do agree, Muti. I think communication is vital, and how do we what we call package the communication message? I think hope is very important, right? And if the company is able to sustain, then how do we take the employee to have a mindset that let's ride the storm together, right? There'll be some, maybe if let's say there is some pay cut, right? So how do we really influence them to be open and transparent to show the financial figures, the customers what we demand. Maybe there is a very low demand and we need to go on the pay cut or the what we call workforce reduction. I think the most important, we need to be transparent with all this.
Yeah.
But at this moment, the company that I'm at is, I'm quite fortunate. We haven't gone to that mode, but we are very cost conscious. We are asking employees and HODs to defer costs if possible, even though we have a zero OT.
Yeah. Thank you, Jensen. By the way, just to let you know, TFAMD is manufacturing gaming chips for the PS4, Sony PS4 devices. So working from home, you know what a lot of employees are doing. They're probably playing some games on your Sony PlayStation. No thanks to TFAMD's quick production of its products. Thank you, Jensen. Yeah, but I like the fact that you mentioned that clarity of the situation is important, especially when we're talking to employees and also to management. So Murthy, back on that point, if you had a case study of a tough management team who is very much cost-centric, business focused, and not so much employee focused, what would a typical advice be to a HR person who needs to influence upwards?
So it's very subjective, Michael, because it varies from industry to industry. So there are a couple of things for us to look at. Number one, I mean, there are industry whereby, so their P&L is being monitored on a quarter-to-quarter basis. So in that kind of situation, if they have to make some drastic decision for that, this particular quarter have to look positive, right? So, and we have to understand the leaders are all answerable to another group of people,
right,
for the board of the shareholders. So it's very unique. I don't think anyone out there would want to deliberately slash headcount or to make other people's life miserable. But everyone is paid to do their job. Okay? But at the same time, so as an HR personnel or an HR professional, how we can very subtly influence is that, number one, this is the time that probably, I mean, it's very natural for the leaders to react to situations like this, especially, when it's completely unprecedented and they don't know, if they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that makes things worse. So this is probably the time where you really make them understand about the philosophy of the organization. What is the purpose of the organization in the first place? What has we been advocating all this while in terms of our vision, mission, culture, and so on and so on, in terms of our values. So I probably, as an HR professional, this is the time we may want to take this up and talk to them. And secondly, perhaps, from the HR perspective, we can also lay out a couple of options, before really going into a massive reef or reduction in force. What are the other options, which we can explore on a stage-by-stage basis, which can help us to buy some time? Like, for example, people can, they can go on, they can start utilizing the annual leave, first. Secondly, they can gradually go on an unpaid leave for an X number of days. And thirdly, people can take a pay cut. And fourthly, we can see what kind of, maybe like an alternative work arrangement. So we can go on a stage-by-stage basis. And as we survive this storm, and probably it will help us to buy some time, then when you have some visibility, which we know, because, things like this, the good part here is, this particular pandemic is not destroying any resources, unlike war, unlike calamity. The resources are there. It's only about now. It's basically the economic engine have to be restarted.
Restarted, yes.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
once it happens, I'm sure the light can be seen. So it's a matter of time. So going back, it depends on the organization. If an organization has got the the threshold of holding it for a couple of quarters, they will be able to hold on. If some organization, they are on a quarter-to-quarter basis, they may have to move into some drastic decision. So this is where, from the HR perspective, we can provide some practical and some reasonable approaches to the management, which I think that which will make sense to the leadership. But most importantly, as what Usha said, all this has to be very transparently communicated to the team members or the employees, so that they understand why an organization is making such decisions.
Yeah, I think it's important that HR people play a proactive approach rather than just taking orders from management. But like what Murthy mentioned, to even help management onboard a process, a gradual process, so that we are able to allow the employees to transition into a new environment rather than giving them shocking news at a quick instruction of management. I think that's important. We have a question from the one question that has turned up. This person isn't sure how many organization is flexible about flexible work arrangements or policy prior to MCO. But the question here is that since work from home has become a norm during MCO, would or should organization look into flexible work policy moving forward? I'll open it up to any one of the panel members to take this question. Do you think this is an area that we need to address?
Let me take it up.
Sure.
You see, so before answering that question, right? So I would like to say one thing here. This current situation that we are in, I don't think an environment or situation that we are in could be choreographed or pre-planned in such scale ever by any human being. Would you agree with me?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So this is something that has happened very naturally for whatever reason, and has allowed us to experience certain things which certain things we wanted to experience, certain things we don't want to experience, to go through this. Okay. So I would define it that all of us are probably in the intersection, okay, between confusion and opportunity. So that's the truth, because we were all in a state of confusion for a period of time, and at least from my standpoint, my perspective, I would say that personally, and also from a professional standpoint, I see opportunities now. So what are the opportunities that we're looking at? From the HR perspective, I think there have been so many initiatives. And I think the people who are from the HR fraternities in the group, so they will kind of relate to what I'm saying. There's so many initiatives, there's so many best practices that we have been struggling to implement in our organization over the years. Okay, but more often than not, things get started, it went stop halfway, things get initiated, after that did not really prosper, and some of it didn't really get a buy-off from the management. But now, imagine, right? Flexi working hour has already been in place, even without really anyone pushing it. Number two, okay, virtual offices already in place. Online learning, I'm not a believer of online learning, for heaven's sake. I thought, if you want to learn, you got to attend a class. But now I'm completely, into this idea. You can do many things. All right, and at the same time, alternative work arrangements. So, and this is what this situation has given birth to. So now, from the HR standpoint, I would say that once these things is already now by default already in practice, what we got to do now is that to hold it as a baseline, the new baseline, as a new normal, and start advocating this strongly to the management to say that, hey, let's go and leverage on all these new things that we have been doing it. And look here, it is not bad as what we thought, so people can still work from home and they can be equally productive. People can manage their family and manage their work, and they can be still engaged, So these are some of the discoveries that we will be able to share with the people. I think if one thing that the foresight or the future of HR, that for us to be more effective and more relevant, I think this is probably what we have to pick up very proactively and start leveraging on what has taken very naturally, and start advocating and promoting this strongly to the management. I think
excellent.
Personally, myself, this is what I'm doing.
Well, so Mr. Murthy, what I'm hearing you say is that there's really no let's go work from home. We are forced to work from home already. Now what you're saying is let's engage management to leverage on this newfound approach and see how to internalize it in organization. Thank you so much, Mr. Murthy. That's a very good insight. Usha and Jensen, do you have got anything to add to what Mr. Murthy has stated just now?
Well, maybe I just share. I think working from home really depends on industry.
Right.
Personally, for me, I think that when situation is back to normal next year, people will forget about working from home.
Yeah.
Extent, because we still have the 30, 40, 50 years of working environment conditioning. And remember, our bosses, me, we are from the generation that we want to see each other, touch each other,
True.
face to face. So it will take a while before the culture of working from home is fully embedded in our workforce. I do believe, however, there will be a flex work from home. So I think forward, what I see is more flexible. It can be flexible benefits, flexible workforce, flexible working from home type of thing, a culture rather than a fix, from home. Theoretically, a hospital industry is very difficult to work from home.
Yeah,
right?
Thank you so much,
One
Usha.
industry,
Yes, I was just speaking to a neuropsychiatrist on the phone 2 days ago to invite him in our future sessions, and he told me that the number of patients that he's had dropped like about 70% since this whole work from home MCO happened. So he says that he's also thinking about initiating an online process, and he may say yes to us. So I guess this is a new norm even for doctors. Thank you for sharing that. Jensen, anything on your side before we move on?
Oh, I'm interested to know about the HR community in this forum. What are the feedbacks or what are they thinking? Because they are quite quiet.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, so we've given them an opportunity to ask questions. So I think some of them are also listening intently to some of the sharings that you're giving. But just before we, and Jensen, do you have anything to add on this, the question just now on do you see that this working from home would become a policy moving forward?
It depends on organization. Definitely, I agree with Usha. And for my organization is slightly, I hear that some of the employees, they want to come back to work because they find it difficult to work from home. Right, and they find more productive to work at the office rather than work from home. I mean, it also depends on individual, right? And I think currently the technology, I think for individual companies, then they have to reassess and to have that sort of technology to really support this sort of work from home. Because I mean, in my company, I mean, there are certain challenges that we had when we start to implement this work from home. I came from other companies. That they've been practicing this all the while, working from home. But I think the mass working from home, the mass people working from home, that was something more interesting.
Low awareness.
Yeah. But in currently my company, I think the like is that the management here also have this good feeling that working from home is also a workable thing, right? Just like Muti was saying, something is workable, and they trust the employees to work from home.
Right.
Initially, it was like, are you sure? Are they productive? What are they doing? Are they sleeping?
Yeah.
Right? So all these thoughts, but then they realized that actually working from home is more. They spend more time, spend more hours working rather than in office.
Or even commuting for that matter.
Yes.
So I think generally the consensus is to whoever asked the question is that definitely is something that people are addressing working from home. But I think we need to take a very systemic view on this and to see how we can integrate it in a way that there's a proper reporting system. People feel empowered as what Murthy mentioned just now, but there must be a sense of responsibility that work needs to be done. There's a feedback here that I think that the management may allow the individual to choose, let them to have the authority to work from office or from home. There's an article that this person read and found that from this way they will have a higher motivation rather than forcing them to work from office only or work from home only. I think a certain degree of maturity on the part of the employee and also a certain system on the part of management is perhaps necessary. Thank you so much, Jensen, for that sharing. So, my dear friends, I truly hope, and I totally agree with Jensen, many of the participants have been very quiet, but according to May, she says that she's been listening very intently. I'd like to thank you so much for carving out this time to be with us, Murthy, Jensen, and Usha, for sharing these valuable thoughts with us. In conclusion, I believe that in a nutshell, what Usha, Murthy, and Jensen is saying is that we need to first take a strategic approach. Usha reminds us that continuing to learn and develop employees is still very necessary during this time. Murthy and Usha also mentioned, and even Jensen, that yeah, salaries, safety, all those things goes, but most important, as what Murthy has mentioned, communication, having a robust process is very important. And Jensen has really emphasized the importance of the emotional aspect, reaffirming employees, motivating them, showing empathy to them is very critical at this point in time. And it is very critical that HR plays a proactive role in educating employees and also management in the process, particularly in integrating a work from home culture. I also like to leave you with the thought that what Murthy shared with us just now, that we need to remind ourselves our organizational philosophy. And we need to also remind ourselves, if I could add, Murthy, the history of your organization. I'm sure Ramsay, SimW, or TFAMD, or even Micron for the matter, would have gone through difficult times before. We just need to remind employees that we have come out of it before, we will come out of it again, and perhaps we could learn to be stronger and to have more grit in the process. So once again, I'd like to thank all participants for being with us here, and also a panel of speakers, and I hope that you found this session helpful. Stay tuned with us. We have more of these forums coming up, and we'll be in touch with you through email. I'd like to hand over the session back to Christopher Nicholas to do the closing. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. We have come to a conclusion, and once again, thank you very much for allocating your precious time with us. Special thanks to Ms. Usha, Mr. Jensen, Mr. Murthy for the effort and also the willingness to share the thoughts, ideas, and also your strategy. And also Mr. Michael for the moderation. I hope that you find this session very meaningful. So before I leave, I want to share a quote by Edward de Bono. He said that there is no doubt that creativity is the most important human resource of all. Without creativity, there would be no progress and we would be forever repeating the same pattern. So today we are witnessing something that will change the way we work. We cannot afford to work or think the same way before. Hence, creativity is very important to help finding a better solution to a problem. Before we end this session, I would like to invite all of you all for a group picture. So my colleague Crystal, she will take group pictures in batches because we have 41 participants.
Yeah, we will take in 2 batches. So ladies and gentlemen, so we are going to take a group photo. So just feel free to switch on your video so that I can see all the beautiful and handsome faces and take a group photo for our today's session, and we can make a full stop. All right.
That's a good strategy to make people on their video.
Yes. After 1.5 hours, at least we can see their beautiful faces. Alright, we have total of 38 of participants here. So I'm going to take 2 batches of the group photo. Alright, I can see the... Okay, is everyone on your video? Julia, Aisha, Hester, Yili, Samantha. Alright. Okay, I think some of the participants, they have some technical problem with the video. Never mind, we will proceed with whoever which is already on the video. I will take the first batch of the group photo. So just look at the camera and smile with a count of 3, 2, 1, smile. Right, just a minute, let me post it. Okay, and I'll continue with batch number 2. Just continue smiling. Let me count 3, 2, 1. All right, just a minute. Okay, just ready. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you have a good evening, and we will actually sharing with you the next upcoming session for our HR forum. Just stay tuned, and we will hope to see you very soon. And stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
God bless
you.
you all. See you then.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Michael.
evening.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Bye,
Thank you.
Timothy. Bye, Usha.
Bye bye.
Kau tim saya. Nanti nak sandwich juga finally. Always